Welcome to Survival Weekly. My name's Chad.
And my name's Kevin. This is our show about two ordinary guys just discussing survival.
I've seen a lot of videos and a lot of comments saying that people would definitely want assault rifles or some kind of home protection because they think most of their community, most of the people they go to work with every day, would lose their minds and start eating each other. You know, that's an extreme example, but
Sure.
Stealing each other's stuff, shooting each other in their head for their backpack. Do you really think that it would go down like that, Kev?
A lot of people do say that for sure, and I think, more and more when you watch movies, the movie The Road, 2012, all these zombie movies, which always seem to be that the population of the planet has turned to zombies, which is kind of like an end of the world scenario and all this thing.
Pandemics or whatever. You're
being kind of taught, I think, a little bit that the world, everybody, if, you leave this system, then, there's going to be outright chaos and people will be killing each other in the streets and whatnot and whatever. And believe it or not, when you seem to do research on some of the places that have had economic collapse and whatever, that doesn't really seem to be the truth. Crime does increase, but not near as what people seem to think.
Or what one might expect.
Or what the media tends to portray would happen about everybody just running around killing each other. And they seem to forget when people actually bond together. You see what happened in 9/11, what happened? People bonded together, they immediately helped.
They got together as a team.
They stayed up all night, they worked for days. I
didn't hear about any looting or people robbing each other.
During the tsunami. I'm sure there was probably a little bit of looting and stuff like that for people trying to get the resources and whatnot. But when we're talking about the people that are running around with the AKs and for the protection or whatever, we're not talking about someone that steals a steel manhole cover to try to turn the metal into money so his family can eat. We're talking about people that right now are good everyday citizens are going to run around all of a sudden start robbing people.
Home invasions, carjacking.
And there is a slight increase in crime levels in some of these places, but you also have to understand that the criminal element that already lives there, they will exponentially increase the crime rate already. They'll just commit more crimes. So is there more people committing crimes? Yes, a small number more. But I don't think it's going to be exactly what the media shows. I don't think it's going to be all out anarchy type chaos in the streets. When you do the research, everything that we read that we could find on Argentina and Russia, some of these other places, they were all about citizens protesting and going after government and government banking institutions. They don't mention the people fighting amongst each other
attacking
at all.
corporations.
Attacking corporations.
More than their fellow community
and attacking
members.
their government because their food costs so much money or whatever. But there's not so much. There is chaos in some extent, but they're not out in the streets committing violence against each other.
Like in Greece. Or Iceland, or...
In any of these places, they've all protested, they've all went against governments, and they show in the news that they're violent and whatever, but they're throwing firebombs at banks. They're not attacking each other. They're not killing each other.
Well, that's not like a natural disaster, emergency situation.
The tsunami was.
The tsunami definitely was a natural disaster, yeah.
And there would be some looting, but there wasn't too many people in Thailand with guns stealing from other people that were dying in the streets beside them.
Shooting
They were
each other for water.
They were trying to help them.
Yeah.
So I think I have a lot more faith in humanity than what the media shows. I think the media constantly shows violence and death and murder and whatever, rather than showing the good in humanity. And imagine if we only saw the good on TV every day, we would think everybody was great. But instead they feed us this crap all day long and show us all the bad.
So if we were looking at fact, we were actually looking at history instead of current movies that portray this, that are fictitious scenarios.
Sure, and we're not talking another country coming in and occupying your country. A full military takeover.
Not a Red Dawn scenario.
Is a completely different thing than an economic collapse or a natural disaster and whatever. And yes, people will struggle for some of those last or tightening up resources or whatever. But a lot of people will also bond together. And I don't want to write all human beings off as being these horrible, evil, vile creatures, because people have always struggled to survive. From the very first day of our existence that we know that man existed, life has been a struggle. And man, the majority of the population, is not out there killing his fellow man to get ahead. So I think there's a lot more to be said for humanity than just everybody's just going to go crazy and start slaughtering people in the streets. Because I know
the Depression. What happened during the Depression?
Perfect example. We were talking about that during the Great
I don't remember
Depression.
hearing anything about people eating each other or shooting each other in the head for water or food.
My family, my mother's family, suffered greatly during the Depression, and won't get into the whole history of that or whatever. But they were struggling for food, and they didn't go out and rob from people, and they didn't go out and kill from people, and they didn't go out and steal from people. And my family made it from being in extreme poverty to somewhere else. So I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Well, I have to admit that before we talked about this and we looked into it, I did think that people would freak out a lot more. And so when we look back on it, I was pleasantly surprised. I'd rather be wrong. I would much rather be wrong than think that people will come together in that kind of scenario.
And like I said, I know there's a lot of people that are saying, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about, you guys are crazy, it's going to be all-out anarchy or whatever. And I say do your research. Because so far, and I'm not saying I've done it to an extent where I can pull out numbers out of my hat or whatever, but so far with the skimming over that we've done, it's definitely not what the movies portray. Or like watch the movie The Road and people eating each other and whatever. It's not going to get to the point where people are eating other human beings. I mean, if you believe in Darwinism and evolution, cavemen and whatever, why were cavemen not eating each other or whatever? Why? Because people are not animals that eat their own kind. There's lots of other animals in the other animal kingdom that follow that, and I gotta tell you, that's not all of a sudden going to change just because you're hungry, or it would have happened throughout history and centuries now. I mean, there's starvation in Africa every day. You don't hear about mass cannibalism.
No, you're right, yeah.
So I think a lot of that is media-fed propaganda to get you...
A conditioning of sorts?
To fear you into, if there is a collapse, then you're going to have to stay with our system, because if you don't stay with our system, then you guys are all going to kill each other, you're going to feed on each other like animals. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't consider myself an animal.
So overall, I found this to be good news. I'm excited about that.
Sure,
that's cool.
And the research, you know, I was kind of thinking a little bit, you know, anyway, I try to hold out a little bit of faith in at least the majority of people, because, I mean, I have friends, and everybody has friends, and if you look outside, I mean, what, 70%, 80% of the population is not out committing crimes. So even if 10% of that group does increase crime, which would be like a double what we have right now, like literally overnight, that means that 70% of the population is still a human being that's not going to go out. And so I think there's been a really bad skew at making humans look way worse than what we really are. It's not to say that there's not wars and all these other things, but there's manipulation involved in starting those wars, and there's a much bigger picture than just two bullies squaring off in a battle.
Yeah, so why do you think this has come about then?
What's
the message? What's the message about? You think that it's deliberately being played up that people
to keep you in fear so that you will never abandon the current system of the banking system and everything like that. Because when the initial stock market collapse happened, the banking system, the Federal Reserve Bank, was taken on because the Federal Reserve Bank was a promise that the economy would never ever collapse again. And here we are facing on the brink of like a collapse far better. And I mean, if you understand the banking system and you research it, you realize that they could make the whole system collapse at the touch of a button.
Magical digits, yeah.
Literally in seconds. I mean, the money is basically not real to begin with. It's printed, it's debt written right from the beginning, and you can't pay loans with loans. So eventually it catches up to you, and that's the band-aids that they've been using for a while right now with Greece's economic collapse or whatever, and then giving them, I think it was $900 million or something to, well, if you have a visa and you owe Visa $20,000, do you go get another Visa for $30 to pay that $20? At some point the bill comes due. So, and that day is coming.
Yeah, that whole financial system is faulty for sure. It's fictitious as well.
Well, it's not only faulty, it's fraudulent, and it's run by criminals.
So, if you don't think that people would stick together in that kind of scenario, let us know why you think that would be. Why you think...
And if you've done the research, and if you can find like statistics to prove that it's going to skyrocket.
Yeah, we don't know everything. Let us know, yeah.
And we've tried to find it, and we can't do it. So
let us know, yeah.
My name's Kevin.
My name's Chad.
And thanks for watching Survival Weekly.
See you next time.